Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the Epic Narrative.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Epic Narrative. Bob was just like, you ended last episode like, he goes, he thought when we were done with that last episode, he was like, dang, you could have been a professional. A cliffhanger. What will happen tomorrow, next week on? Yeah, that was a good one. Every once in a while I nail it. Oh man, I do appreciate those of you that are listening as always. I do know that it takes a lot of a commitment to listen to the Epic Narrative. We mentioned it last episode. It's a unique platform, a unique podcast. It's my heart wants it to catch on. I'd love for hundreds of thousands, millions to listen to it. I just think the need to at least consider the goodness of God in the Old Testament is vital. It's vital. And I think it's vital on so many levels, which is why I'm passionate about this. It's one of my I've been in ministry. Well, currently, at the time of this recording, I'm an unemployed pastor who can't find a job in ministry for multiple reasons, one of which is my belief in the goodness of God, and others are because I'm, by most standards, church standards, I'm too old, and I didn't go to seminary, and I didn't work for any denomination along the way. I kept working for independent churches or independent ministries or independent conference centers or whatever. So all the strikes are against me when it comes to working at churches, but be that as it may, I'm not worried about it. God's amazing, and I do believe he's good, which is why I'm doing this podcast. I just think he's that good. I think he's always been good all through time, not just all the time, all through time. And I think it's a vital message. I really do, at least for people to consider and have the option to believe, because most people have never been given the option to believe that God was good. They've been told that even though he looks really, really bad, he's still good. And if you don't believe it, you're denying the character of God. So get right, or Jesus is going to crush you. God's going to come down and crush you like he did Pharaoh. Don't you harden your heart. You come forward, give your life to Jesus right now. You come forward right now, rededicate your life to God. Before he cried, you could leave today right now, walk across that street and be struck by a car and die right now. Would you go to heaven? Would you go to heaven? You could drive home today and tomorrow morning wake up with a CO2 leak in your house and you're just dead. You wake up dead. Where are you going to wake up? Where are you going to wake up? Don't you harden your heart again. All right, sorry. I get flashbacks to my old preaching. I do. I think I could have been an amazing TikTok star if I had gone to a denominational school and had learned. I think I think I would have been pretty passionate and pretty entertaining at the same time. I do. And that's enough about me. All right, verse 7. Bob's like, really? We're gonna go down the what if stories? No, that's for me and my personal time, Bob. Thank you for the reminder. On with the program. Verse 7 of chapter 10. Pharaoh's officials said to him, "How long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go so they can worship the Lord their God. Do you not yet realize that Egypt is ruined?" Or ruined. Some people can't say the ED. Whoa, I just nailed the microphone. Sorry about that. I'm sure that was quite interesting to listen to in your headphones. You ever hear that? Ruined? Everything was ruined. And I think, wait, there's no T in that word. Where did you get the T? I'm pretty sure it doesn't end in a T. No, it doesn't. It ends in a D. Then why do you say a T? I didn't. You did. You just said ruined, and the word is ruined. Anyways, it is funny to hear the points of emphasis in various parts of the country. My wife and I have traveled at the time of this recording, 30,000 miles together in less than a year. And we have heard many, many, shall we say, English dialects around the country. And honestly, they're all fun. I love them all. Our country is pretty amazing and breathtakingly beautiful. Like, it's funny. I think I was in the Badlands. There's Badlands in South Dakota, and there's Badlands in, I think it was in Arizona. Anyways, they're just, you're walking around feeling like you're on the moon. And then you realize, wait, I am. Like, I'm on a planet in space. This is what being on another planet would feel like, but it's actually my planet because it is a planet and we're in space and it's bizarre. Oh man, is it bizarre and beautiful. Oh my goodness, is it beautiful. Pharaoh's official said that. Verse 8, then Moses said to Aaron, Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. Go worship the Lord your God. But tell me, who will be going? And Moses said, we will go with our young and our old and our sons and our daughters and our flocks and our herds, because we are to celebrate a festival to the Lord. And Pharaoh said, the Lord be with you if I let you go. Ha ha ha. I love that, right? Along with your women and children. Clearly you are bent on evil. No. Have only the men go and worship the Lord, since that is what you've been asking for. Then Moses and Aaron were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. Oh, man. So this all takes place right at last episode. Like, what will happen? Well, this is what happened. In verse 6, they finish warning Pharaoh as to all that's going to happen, and then Moses turns and they leave Pharaoh. They leave him and his officials. And the officials are not religious leaders. They're not magicians. They're not sorcerers. They're not wise men who are in essence are like astronomers and astrologers. These are officials. They're officials. Officials are other people, right? Now, religiously, the magicians, the sorcerers, the wise men, they've been trying to explain to the officials and to Pharaoh why the idols have turned against them. And they have all their own reasons, and some of them may be because we're being too nice to the Hebrews. The magicians, they've been trying to figure out how they're not able to manipulate matter in the same way that the Hebrews God can. How can Moses keep figuring this out? I'm sure they're probably blaming it on his time in Midian, that there was some sort of, they probably had heard. Bob's like the burning bush. Yes, they probably heard about the burning bush and thought there's an oracle that he found in the mountains while he was in Midian. And the oracle gave him keys to the frequencies of matter that we don't have. And that's why he's winning. But other than that, it's really not a big deal. We just need to find that oracle. If we can find that oracle, we will have the same power. Like, I have no doubt. Like, is it really that big of a stretch of the imagination that there haven't been already a contingent of magicians and sorcerers that went out with a group of people trying to find this burning bush? To me, that they probably did that right after they weren't able to recreate the lice or the gnats or the bugs or the whatever it was that they couldn't recreate. They were like, all right, he has more. Where did he get more power than us? The only thing they could attribute it to, because he clearly had the education they had, he had the 40 years of experience in their nation that they had. They thought maybe we learned a few things, but no, this is way too intense. You can't tell me they didn't send out a dispatch, a bunch of scouts to try and find this, quote, oracle of the burning bush. I'm sure it happened. There's people that still try to find where the burning bush is. There are literal people who you can pay to show you where the burning bush is. I swear to you, it's insane. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's already happened. So the magicians are trying to say we're not irrelevant. We're just not as educated, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna figure it out. But the officials would be the ones in Pharaoh's court. They are the gatekeepers. They are the taskmasters. They are the wealthy merchants, or at least representations of them. They are ambassadors who have trade deals and both financial and security contracts or covenants with the Egyptians. They see the devastation that has happened to this country. They know they are on the brink of no return. They know this. They look at the practical things like it's all fun and games until it gets too painful. And now it's painful. The pocketbooks of even the wealthy are being impacted. The ability to get work done is getting irretrievable. Taskmasters say it doesn't matter how much we beat them. All of the grass has been destroyed by the hailstorm. We can't make brick. It doesn't. You can tell them to go get the straw. It doesn't exist. And what we're building, what bricks we can build, they're not strong enough to hold anything up. They're going to fall apart, or the wind is going to devastate them. Like we can't do what you're asking us to do anymore. We can't pretend that we're strong enough to handle this anymore. Maybe they use the word recession. No, like you can deny the recession up until now, but now we are in a recession, or maybe a depression. And if we don't stop this madness, Pharaoh, we will not be able to recover. This nation will be crushed. The only thing we have that we can still claim any sort of superiority on is the army. That's it. And when word starts to spread around to the other nations, and these are ambassadors from other nations, if my people find out that you don't have grain, that you don't have corn, that you don't have livestock, that you don't have even half the servants you did before, no, we're going to have to go elsewhere. We're going to have to make trade agreements elsewhere. Like this is one of those come to Jesus. No, they wouldn't have a come to Jesus movement, would they? This is one of those serious conversations the officials are having. They're like, well, it was fun. We can let you do your thing. But now we're talking real life here. We can see it. Like, go for a walk, Pharaoh, or at least go to your rooftop. Look out over your nation where you used to be able to look down the green valleys. It's crushed. And if the locusts show up tomorrow and all that green is gone, forget it. You're not coming back from that. Not for a long time. They're also, these officials are the ones that would have been hearing the voices of the everyday Egyptians. Other wealthy ones, yes. People of influence, yes. Not international merchants, but local ones. They also would have heard the everyday merchant in the marketplace. These are, they're done. They don't care if Pharaoh looks like a fool. They don't care that his ego might be hurt. They're like, let the people go. They want 3 days in the desert. Let them go. We don't want anymore. We don't care about our national pride enough to sit here and say, woohoo, we took on a God and won. We took on a God, we got our butts kicked. It's okay. He's a big God. Maybe we should talk to him. Maybe we should make some sort of arrangement with the Hebrew. Maybe we've been playing the powerful dictator boy just a little too long. So that's the sort of thing that they're hearing, and they're bringing it to Pharaoh. They've heard what Moses just said. Once again, Moses is exposing the plan of the enemy. He's saying locusts are coming tomorrow if something doesn't happen. So they're talking to him. I'm sure their reason was like, listen, 3 days. Give them 3 days. This is over. We can recover They can be gone for 3 days. We can clean up some of this mess. When they get back, we'll put them to work. We can recover. Now you could, how long will this man be a snare to us? Or the word snare is a lure. They're like, how long are we going to let bad things happen to us because of Moses and Aaron? Like, how long are you going to let this guy like, they're looking at Moses saying, ever since this guy arrived, life has been rough. Let the guy go with his people. Let him go. I wouldn't kill him because literally we have no idea what that would happen. Like, I'm sure that was floated. Maybe we should kill him. No. You see what kind of trouble this happens to us when he is alive? Can you imagine if we killed him, what his God would do? Because they seriously think that his God is doing, like, they're like, no, we cannot risk retribution from that God. Our gods are already been proven over and over and over again that they can't match the power of his God. You don't want to wipe him out. Let's just let him go. Like, I'm sure the debate was very lively. I've seen Middle Eastern debates. I have a feeling that there was a lot of shouting and a lot of hand gestures and a lot of name calling. And ultimately, Moses and Aaron are called back in. That had to be pretty awesome. Verse 8, right? Moses and Aaron are called back to Pharaoh. They're not, I don't know if they probably just went to the gate where they normally sit as ambassadors or representations, Robert. What are you thinking? As representatives of the Hebrew nation. And then they get a message, like a messenger runs up and says, the Pharaoh would like to see you. Moses and Aaron probably looked at each other and thought, oh, this is awesome. This is the first time that that we've given a warning and we haven't had to go through with it. This is awesome. So they went. And I imagine they were pretty excited. They might have even been smiling. Now, do I think they were arrogant and were like, blah, 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 like, we are greater than you, Pharaoh. Our God will crush you, Pharaoh. I don't think so, but I do know that there are preachers who like to present them that way. And that's fine. It's your story, your imagination. If you think that they're more arrogant and prideful than Pharaoh, fine. I don't think it fits the character of God, and I don't think they represent the character of God if they behave that way. But it's only me and my little podcast, and I can be wrong. So Pharaoh says, go worship the Lord your God. But remind me again, who's going? And I have a gut feeling that when he asked that question, remind me who's going, I have a gut feeling the officials were like, no. Because I think at first the officials were like, yes, he's going through with this. Finally something sensible. Like a typical politician, he threw it out and then he kind of pulls it back. Like, yes, we're going to solve world hunger. But first of all, we're going to narrow the field just a little bit, right? We're going to throw in some caveats because we don't want to look like we gave all authority to somebody else. We have to look like we have some semblance of authority because we're in charge, right? That's the way a politician thinks. They just say, stop. Yes, I will stop. Yes. So I think Pharaoh's the same way. It's like, okay, fine, I'll let them go. And then he's like, wait, while he's having to make this decision, while Moses and Aaron are walking down the hallways and courtyards to get to him, he's thinking, now it's going to look like the officials tell me what to go do. Now it's going to, like, everybody's going to think that I'm some sort of political puppet. I can't just let them go. It's worse than being a puppet of Moses. And doing what Moses asks. Now they're going to think that I'm a puppet of Moses and the official. No, I need some level of control. So that's what he offers, right? What's going on here? Now Moses and Aaron are called back. But again, they're working with their leaders. Everyone is seeing the protection of God over his people. Everyone knows this, but they don't know what it means, right? They just know that the Hebrews are protected. Can we just be done with this so that we can go back to being normal? The officials want to go back to being normal. And really, I think a lot, as we've mentioned before, I think the Hebrews all want to go back to being, quote, normal, to the way it used to be before Pharaoh's, quote, forgot Joseph, which just means they started to override all of his policies regarding his people. They just want to go back. I still don't think the Hebrews are even Moses and Aaron know that they ultimately need to go back to the promised land, but like when and how long will it would take? I don't think Moses is thinking, I'm asking for 3 days off because ultimately we're all going to run like madmen to the promised land, because he knows he can't outrun the military of Egypt with 1 million people. You just can't, or 2 million. Some say 4 million. Like, you can't outrun them. Everyone will die. So I don't think that Moses is thinking, haha, God's telling a great lie. Like, that's another whole character issue with God, right? If you think the whole time that God's like, I'm just going to ask for 3 days, but if he gives me 3 days, we're all going to run. That's like another just theological gymnastics that people play. It's ridiculous to try and tie deception into the character of God and say, well, he's righteous, he's holy, he can do what he wants. Sorry if I sounded like I was mocking theologians, but I was. But I'm sorry if that offended you. So everyone's in their own way, while Moses and Aaron are walking back and Pharaoh's about to talk to them. They're all trying to make sense of it all. What is God doing? And after 3 days, then what? If Pharaoh says we can go back, like as they're walking, I'm sure Aaron and Moses are like, what if he said yes? What if we actually do leave? What are we going to do? And Aaron's probably like, well, I'll talk to the elders and we'll get all the heads of the household together. And, we'll tell the people to pack up for the desert and we'll head out into the desert. Yeah, well, how long do you think that'll take? Well, it's probably going to take, I would imagine at least a day, maybe 2, to get everybody on board. And then we got to make arrangements for all of the animals and plants that we're leaving behind. And so we might need to, that may, is logistically, we're probably talking a couple days before we can go. So, all right. So if he tells us we can go, then I should tell him we'll leave in 3 days, right? 3 days should be enough. And if we leave in 3 days, then we can go and everybody be ready, right? Yeah. I think, 3 days would be more than enough. Maybe two, I think we could do it. I mean, if he pushes back, tell him we'll do it in 2 days. And then really we'll only be gone for about a week. And then, and then we'll be back. And the other elders are pushing, maybe some of them are walking with them for a little ways, Are they even hoping at this point for absolute freedom? Are they really in a place where they're walking up to see Pharaoh and they're thinking, wow, if we leave for 3 days, we're never coming back. Like, that'll be crazy. I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, maybe we'll slowly migrate. Maybe like we'll leave in waves. Certain groups will go first, create, a spot, find a spot for us to go, then send back, and we'll just kind of migrate like most immigrants would. We'll migrate by the thousands every day, but it'll still take us, a year or 2 to actually leave, if we're actually allowed to leave. I mean, how does all that work? And when will it work? And does it start after 3 days of worship, or does it start next? Like, there's so many questions when Pharaoh says, or when they get the message, hey, go talk to Pharaoh. Like, there's so many things that I'm sure are whirling in their minds, because he's like, this is unique. They've always requested meetings with Pharaoh. Now they're getting called into Pharaoh after they said, tomorrow this will happen. And now, an hour later, 2 hours later, Pharaoh wants to see you guys. Oh my goodness, Aaron, what do you think? Well, I don't know. What if he says? What if he says this? What if he? Well, yeah. Well, no. This is what we'll do. This is definitely what we'll do. We'll talk to so and so. And they're laying out all the At least if they're anything like me, they're laying out all the possibilities. And if they're anything like me, they're incredibly optimistic about their odds. Like, I honestly ridiculously optimistic. I am ridiculously. I will say yes to something so fast because I just always believe it'll work out. It'll work out. And generally, I'm right, but it doesn't always work out that smoothly as I thought it would. And sometimes it involves a few compromises and surprises, but ultimately, kind of I could say it worked out. Oh, so Pharaoh calls. And he basically says, go. But who's going? Now, he knows this probably hasn't changed from the previous meetings that they've had. But he wants to know. And like I said, I think the officials hear him say, you can go. Worship the Lord your God. And then as soon as he says, but, I see the officials hanging their head, or some of them turning slightly on their staff, or some of them looking at each other and just like, like the arrogance, the pride of Pharaoh comes out again. And they're like, no, don't ruin this. Don't ruin this. We cannot handle another plague. We are on the brink of destruction. But what does he do? He says, but tell me again who's going. Moses basically says, everyone and everything we own, anything that can walk is coming with us. We're going to celebrate a festival. I love that. Because all up until this point, right, everything's been translated worship, worship, worship. And Moses makes it more clear. We are going to celebrate. We are going to have a party like no other. We are going to kill animals and eat lamb and beef and goat and whatever we want. We're going to drink wine. We're going to drink milk. We're going to have bread and dates and cupcakes and this is going to be a party like no other. We are going to be sick to our stomachs. We're going to throw up and we're going to party some more. Like that to me, literally is the atmosphere of heaven. Bob, we will not be drunk. You and I can talk about that later. It is a party. Moses is like, we're going to go. We're taking everything with us because everything's on the table, literally. Worship is a celebration. Worship is designed for all-out sacrifice of the opportunity to be together, to build relationship with our God and with each other. We have been slaves for so long, and we need a place where we can really let loose. I don't know, this is like the ultimate Friday night party after a week long of 20-hour days. Like none of us have experienced what this party would have been like. The opportunity to let loose after being a slave, of living in fear, of constantly hoarding things to try and survive, of just trying to make your master happy long enough so that you don't get beat, of going back the next day and doing the same thing, of believing that if I don't behave correctly, I'm going to lose my house, I'll lose my wife, I'll lose my virginity, like whatever. Like there's always this fear. And then to be 3 days away from Egypt and being told we're going to celebrate. Like I cannot imagine, quote, the steam popping off the top of this. It would have been insane party. And that's what he says. We're taking everything. And what does he say? He's Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh's like, no, well, listen, the Lord be with you. But if you take everyone, you will run away. Now, listen, they got nowhere to go. They have no resources. They don't have allies. They don't have trade partners. They don't have contracts. They don't have covenants. They have no land. They have no money. So it really is it's really a paranoid accusation that comes from a prideful, fearful, controlling heart that only comes from somebody who is completely insecure in themselves. This accusation makes no sense to anyone except Pharaoh, because the only time this kind of stuff makes sense is if you're living in this kind of world, and that's where he lives. Pride, arrogance, fear, control, protection, self-preservation. He's more of a slave and more in bondage than anyone is in the Hebrew world. But he is tied into it, and his officials know it. And I'm sure they listen to this and they're looking at him going, no, Pharaoh. I'll tell you what, he says, I'll let only the men go. Have only the men go and worship the Lord, since that's all you've been asking for. In other words, don't celebrate. Just go do a mantra. Only with the men. And then he literally drives Moses and Aaron out. Like he won't wait for their response. He just internally he just explodes with arrogance. Like he has this opportunity once again for humility, for connection, an opportunity to be convicted and interact with heaven. And he decides, no, I'm sure the idea of celebration was so putrid in his mouth that these slave nation that have no land and no money and no connections would dare go out and celebrate their God, because in his mind, if it wasn't for Pharaoh, they would have nothing. How can they give God credit for everything that Pharaoh has provided? And he barely provides enough for them to live, and yet somehow they bypass Pharaoh and give God credit. He's like, no, take only the men, and that's it. And he kicks them out. He refuses to even talk to them. Now, the officials had to be very disappointed. And maybe some of them, rolled their eyes. And if any of them were like me, they would have said, well, that went well. Fabulous. Probably should bring all the plants inside, because I have a feeling that we're going to be covered in locusts tomorrow. And that's what happened, right? And Moses said to Pharaoh, stretch out your hand over Egypt that the locusts will swarm. And he did. And the east wind blew across the land all that day and all that night. By morning, the wind had brought the locusts. They invaded all of Egypt, every area in the country in that great numbers never before had seen. And by great numbers, it just means everywhere where there was green, it was covered. They ate. The ground that was green had turned black with the color of the locusts. They devoured all that was left after the hail, everything growing in the fields, all the fruit on the trees. Nothing green remained on the tree or plant in Egypt. It got as bad as God had predicted. And you say, well, he had him hold out his staff. Yeah, I think for me, what Moses was signifying was the protection that God has been giving you because of his goodness and his grace. He's going to lift to let you see once again what the heart of your enemy is, the thing that you worship, that you think has power. I'm just going to reveal to you for a moment what that thing is actually after. It devastates. I mean, locusts are devastating to a desert culture. So what does he do? Pharaoh calls him back. He humbly asks forgiveness. Now forgive my sin once more and pray the Lord you'll take this deadly plague from me. His heart, remember, was burdened. His heart was overwhelmed. It was grieved over all the things that he had learned about himself and about all those around him and about the things that he worshiped and the lies that he believed. His heart was burdened. And he gives into to that burden, and he releases humility, and he says, please forgive me. Pray that the locusts go away. And Moses does, and they do. And then because of the burden, not because of God's pressure, but because of that burden, the exposure, the grief that he feels, he says, I'm going back. And he gives into the pressure of his old mindset again. And he goes back on his word again. And because he refused to see Moses and Aaron, the next plague, the next round of darkness shows up without warning. It says, stretch out your hands toward the sky so that darkness may spread over Egypt, darkness that can be felt. This is a supernatural darkness. Now, a lack of sun would be very personal to Pharaoh and to all of Egypt, because Pharaoh, he believed himself to be the representation of the God of the sun on earth. This is his personal God. And this is supernatural. It could be felt. Total darkness for 3 days. No one could see. They couldn't see anyone else. They couldn't move for 3 days. Yet all of Israel had light in the places where they lived. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, go worship the Lord. Even your women and children may go with you. Which is fabulous, right? He's like, all right. Like, this is scary. Like, I can't see. Like, it's almost like blindness, but not really. I'm guessing if you've ever been in a cave, one of those, tourist things where they shut off a light in an area of a cave and you are in pitch blackness. It is incredibly unsettling. It doesn't matter that you even know where you are. It's just unsettling that you can't see where you are. And there has to be a way out, but you're not sure which way. It's so disorienting. And it says that they can feel it. So again, this is the enemy. This is the enemy bringing his presence into the nation of Egypt, that theoretically thought they were worshiping a God of light, and they weren't. They were worshiping a God of darkness. And for 3 days, there was no work. No one could move. The Hebrews stayed home. There was light in their area. Now, some think it was kind of like they were like under a beam of light, and Egypt could see the beam of light but couldn't actually draw any light from it. Some believe that it was in this area. They could use candles and lanterns and torches and the supernatural darkness, although it blocked out the sun. It wasn't something that the Hebrews felt. It was something that they might have experienced like nighttime, but it wasn't a supernatural darkness. So they were able to have lights in their area. Either way, it was miraculous. So Moses calls Pharaoh back. And evidently Moses could see and move in this darkness. And he gets there and he says, all right, fine, you can go. But I just asked for this one compromise. Please leave your flocks and herds behind. Why is he asking that? He's like, this is your long-term food supply. Please leave that. Like, you can take with you 3 days worth of bread and grain and that sort of thing, but don't take the long-term food supply. Don't take the part that you can now breed and feed and herd and, have for the next 10 years out in the wilderness. I can't have you running away. And Moses said, no, our livestock has to go. You must allow us to sacrifice and burn offerings to the presence of our Lord. Not a hoof will be left behind. We have to use some of them in worshiping the Lord our God. And until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship the Lord. So he explains, listen, this is not a matter of food supply for us. This is a matter of worship. We don't know what the Lord's going to require of us. We don't know how many things the Lord's going to require of us. Like at this point, there is no sacrificial system that they're drawing on. They just know that they want to sacrifice to the Lord, and they're going to ask him about it when they get out there. They're like, we got to take it all. He might ask us to sacrifice all the cows. Well, we can't come back here and get them if we left them here. We need to take them all. And I think Pharaoh understands that. He gets it, but he can't give into it because it will look like he's letting them all run away. After the devastation of the locusts, the only people with livestock are the Hebrews. The only people that have a source of food supply for the nation of Egypt are the slaves of Egypt. And he's saying, I can't let you take the food supply. That's the only way my nation makes it. This is not only a power play, this is a legitimate logistical nightmare right now. If all the food chain leaves to go worship their God. So he's not willing. He's like, I can't let you go. I can't. Right? Pharaoh's invitation is trust our God. He was able to protect us. He'll protect you. And Pharaoh's like, no, can't do it. Can't do it. You need to go. Get out of my sight. Never appear to me again. The day you see my face, you will die. And Moses says, all right, I will never appear to you again. Wow. That had to be like, it was powerful for what Pharaoh said. That, disappear from me and you'll never see me again. In other words, you can never even request to leave for 3 days. I will never entertain your request again. And Moses says, okay, I will never appear to you again. And I think Pharaoh was like, yeah, wait, what did I just do? Right? Because he thought he won, and then he realized, wait a minute. Now there's going to be plagues that I don't even know is coming. Just like the darkness. Maybe that was a bad move. But he couldn't go back on it. He was tired of being made a fool of by his own beliefs and his own idols. And he blames Moses, which is why he refuses to see him again. He blames Moses, as most people in a victim mentality, arrogant, prideful world do. They're never the fault. They never can offend anyone. They can never admit that they were wrong. Just they will admit that you didn't understand them. But that's clearly a you problem, not a them problem. They'll even spend hours explaining to you how you misunderstood them, but it's still a you problem, not a them problem. This is how they operate. And so it continues. And Moses leaves. And will he ever see Pharaoh again? Well, maybe we'll find out next time on The Epic Narrative.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
It's like that last scene, right? It's that perfect, like, be careful, what you wish for, or think before you speak. I think that, Pharaoh really wanted an end to this trial. He wanted an end. He didn't want, he had to be so pressured on so many sides. Honestly, the more that I studied this and looked in and just understood the culture of both sides of the story and the political, as well as the political side, the emotional, the personal, the family side, like there's so many ways that he just wanted it to end. He's like, fine, get out. You'll never see my face again. And Moses is like, all right, you're right. I'm tired of this too. Like Moses also had to be tired of this. He's like, you're not listening. None of this is happening. Like, he hasn't changed his request. It's not like he keeps coming in and saying, listen, all right, last time it was 3 days. Now we want 2 weeks. You're going to keep yanking me around. Like, and at some level, he's also not threatening that they wouldn't come back, that they wouldn't go to work. Like, these people are still working every day. Well, currently, probably not, because of the plagues that have been going on, and the whole country is kind of shut down. But I don't know. There's just a lot going on here, and unfortunately, I think so many people have downplayed it in the interest of, the amount of time they have to give a sermon, or the manipulation of the opportunity to be like, don't mess with God or he'll send you the plague type of thing. We miss the complication. We miss the opportunity to, well, honestly, to tell the story, because so many are so bent on just the word. And, well, we've dealt with that before, but there's more to it than just the words on that page. If that's all you got and that's all you're willing to do, you'll still get tons. You'll still get plenty. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying there's more. It kind of reminds me of God. There's always more. He's so good, and yet there's always more. He's so loving, and yet there's always more. He's so full of joy, and yet there's always more. Like, he's just more all the time. One of the things I've forgotten to bring up for a couple weeks, actually for a long time, I just wanted to throw that out to you guys, is this. If you're on social media, and I know a lot of my listeners are not, but if you are, would you mind just telling people that you listen to the Epic Narrative podcast? If you would like us, a graphic, take one from my page. I mean, good grief, scroll down. There's a few of them that just say, listen to the Epic Narrative podcast. If you want one sent to you, reach out to me on Messenger or text message. Those of you who have my phone number, email me. There's lots of ways, but I will, I'll send it to you if you give it to me. But if you can just let people know, hey, listen, I would love to see our audience expand. I think the goodness of God is something that needs to expand. And I'm pretty passionate about it, as you can tell. So I'm going to just ask you guys to do that for me. That would be awesome. I know a lot of you have already given and encouraged me in that way, so please feel free to continue to do that on the link provided in the description, as well as my Facebook page, my Instagram page, which is under Dad Switzer. You guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to continuing next week on the Epic Narrative.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.